Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Sgarlata from Beyond the Range, and we have an exciting training tip for you today talking about magazine reloads. I have retired U.S. Marshal Charlie Moore on the call with us today. Charlie, welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you? Thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you took the time to be with us today. So we're going to talk about magazine reloads because, especially in New York State, we're limited to 7 rounds in our magazine, which really means that if we ever were in a gunfight, we could be emptying that magazine pretty darn quickly. So, I know other states do allow more, but still, it's important to understand the fundamentals to doing a proper magazine reload. So we're going to talk about 3 different times that somebody would have to do a reload. Number 1 is going to be an administrative reload, which we'll talk about in a second. Number 2 is going to be an emergency type reload where even with my laser gun here, right, this is a laser gun, slide, in the middle of a gunfight, slide locks back, you're out of ammo. That's an emergency. And the third one that we're going to talk about today is going to be a tactical reload, and it's going to be more based on a timing and opportunity that you're going to be reloading. So, Charlie, let's start it with you. Let's first talk about an administrative reload. What does that mean?
Sure. Jeff, administrative reload, as Jeff said, safe. I have a UTM weapon here. Safe weapon would be, say we're on a string of fire when Jeff and I get together with you guys in May. And I come to you and I said, all right, the next string of fire will need 6 rounds. And Jeff on the line raises his hand as we do and says, I think I only have 3. What we would do is reach down, not take the weapon out of the holster, take that mag out, secure that, put a fresh mag in, and then we're ready to go on that string of fire. So that's maybe, as Jeff said, just an administrative thing so we can continue that string of fire without delay. So I appreciate that opportunity, Jeff.
Yeah, and that was going to be basically done like at the range you're talking about, right? Like when you're
absolutely, yeah, just to continue have a continuity of training without any delays to go get ammunition and things like that. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go to the second opportunity that you're going to need to reload, and that opportunity in time is going to be an emergency. You run your magazine empty, your gun is empty, you have no rounds in there. We know typically with a magazine reload that we have a couple different ways that people are teaching out there, and the common one is, again, it's a laser gun. A common one is when we are doing the reload is I take my shots, the magazine locks back, I bring it in my workspace, and that one drops as I'm starting to prepare the next one to come in and reload, rack the slide, and go. So the typical one that everybody's teaching is you've fired your firearm, it's empty, you come back, you drop it as you're getting the next magazine ready. Charlie, in one of our training courses, you did a different emergency reload, which I really thought it was great, and especially with the concepts with it. And the concept being that on certain firearms, okay, I'm totally empty here, on certain firearms, you may not be able to get that magazine out. So like in this one, if I push that button, it's stuck on the palm of my hand. And if the gun gets hot or whatever, and you're shaking that, it may not still empty and drop out. So Charlie, share with us your version of a emergency reload.
Yeah, thanks. As Jeff mentioned, this is for, obviously, as you mentioned, emergency. It is an emergency in a gunfight to run out of ammunition. So with your slide lock back, as Jeff said, again, this is my safe weapon. My slide is locked back. Is sometimes because of the fire and the expansion of the magazine, it doesn't come out. So I've kind of learned to strip it, access it, having the finger, your index finger of your non-dominant hand at the top round, insert it, and be ready to go to be engaged in the fight or back into the fight without too much delay. And that's when Jeff and I talk about with you guys about opportunity is during a gunfight. You want to be up and ready to go as fast as possible without as much delay as you can help. So yeah, that's just a different version, different opportunity, but to accomplish the same goal.
And it was funny because when we went to the live range last time you were up, I had some issues with my magazine not seated in all the way, and doing the traditional reload, I was trying to get this magazine out, and I had my other hand already filled with the other magazine, and now I had 2 magazines in one hand trying to do it, and I had challenges with that. So I really like that opportunity that you shared that with us, because now I am actually practicing your version, because it does save me time, and I'm ensuring that that magazine is dropping out. So let's talk about a tactical reload. A tactical reload, sometimes if you search out there on the internet, you're going to see it called a tactical reload, a combat reload. But I really want to talk about it not being a certain technique right now, but being a timing that you're going to reload. You're in a critical situation. You fired your firearm. Did you fire 2 shots, 4 shots, 3 shots? How many rounds are left in your firearm? And you decide that when you get behind cover, you're going to top those rounds off and put a fresh magazine in. So typically what people are talking about with a tactical reload or a combat style reload is, you'll see this a lot of times, and even with some shooting competitions, this is kind of the requirement, is they bring the magazine out with this hand ready to go. And I've seen them top between the first 2 fingers and then the index finger as well as middle finger, whatever it is, you have the magazine in your hand, you strip that half full one out, you load the next one in, and then you put that one in your pocket for later in case you need it. So they talk about bringing the magazine up and switching them right and tight here. Right. Obviously, Charlie, anytime in a critical situation that you have 2 things in one hand, it becomes an issue with ability to be able to do it under pressure. So absolutely. Kind of give us your thoughts, give us your version of a good tactical reload.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. As you mentioned, combat tactical reload, you'll see it out there, you'll hear it out there in the firearms training arena as kind of interchangeable, as Jeff mentioned, is anytime we have we're talking about, as Jeff mentioned, a competition, which you have stress of performance of things, but then when we talk about the street or self-defense situation, as Jeff mentioned, we have the stress of serious bodily injury or death, thus the requirement of using lethal force upon ourselves. So anytime we have delay or anytime under that kind of stress, you guys know that we have a loss of fine and complex motor skills. And Jeff did a great job when he went to do his tactical combat reload, stressing having in his working area or working box. Everyone uses different terminology. I'll try to give you a side view. And he accesses his spare magazine, and you can have a variety of different ways. But I find this difficult, and as Jeff mentioned, it's the opportunity. Is there really a lull in this gunfight to exchange magazines, staying without looking at my weapon, which I'll be honest with you, I find difficult with that technique, especially under stress, to get back up onto target. So I think we have the same goal that Jeff and I here are talking about, but it's when can we do it? I like the concept, and the idea is, over my few decades of my career, I've never heard anybody that got finished in a gunfight or a lethal force situation say, I'm so upset that I had extra rounds left over. I've certainly heard guys say I was down to my last 2 or 3 in my magazine. Right. So I think the concept, as Jeff said, the opportunity to top off your weapon, if you will, is sound. How we do it, when to do it. And again, a different perspective is we got that amount of time to do, Jeff, as you said, that complex skill. Don't we have the amount of time to get our weapon up and functioning, and maybe even behind cover to access that magazine that we may have dropped or put in our pocket? But I think, as you said, Jeff, the concepts, the principles, and the objective of that tactical or combat reload is sound in a gunfight situation. It's how we get there that might put the obstacle or the hump in our performance.
So with your version of the tactical reload, you are pulling that magazine out and then putting it in your pocket, or whatever.
Yeah, I put that one in my pocket. You could put it in a pouch, but again, Jeff, I think our like you mentioned, under competition or under real life stress, complex motor skills really diminish. We talk about that in all of our classes. Is right. When I have this one in my hand and I'm trying to get this one out or dropping it or stripping it, it's taken a long time. And I think even when I practiced these things this morning or yesterday when we spoke, it's difficult. And now my hands are full, and to reload and I'm back up. And, I think it's like you said, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Jeff, is do I have the opportunity during a lethal force situation to really do that? And if I do, shouldn't I get that weapon up and ready to go? But again, when studying this, when you and I discussed this, is a lot of it was developed for competition shooting and to have your weapon up and ready. And I think you want to touch on that. I have a replicated Glock here, which will fire with 1 round in it. But I'll let Jeff talk about some weapon systems. Keeping that in mind, to get our weapon has to be ready to go in a gunfight. But he has weapon systems, and maybe some of you do too, that don't function with a magazine up. Jeff, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, I actually have an older version of a Smith & Wesson that when the magazine is disconnected, you are not able to pull the trigger. So if I'm in a critical situation and I'm in the middle of a gunfight and I pull that magazine out and somebody comes around the corner, I'm stuck. Even if there's a round in the chamber, I can't fire that firearm. So my purpose and my goal is to make sure that whichever way I choose to do the reload, I want to make sure I'm reloading fast and effectively. I got to get that magazine back in order to be able to engage again. I think there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration, but Charlie, would you agree that whichever way they prefer to do a reload, practice is going to be the key to it?
Jeff, you hit the nail on the head in that last few minutes you gave us in your explanation on the Smith & Wesson weapon that you have, is training. Training for the range, though it's a tremendous skill set, has different factors and components than training under the stresses of a real life situation. And you guys could imagine being under that kind of stress. And Jeff hit it again, nail on the head with, look, you got to get that weapon up and ready to go, fully functioning as fast as you can. And again, in my research for this segment, is the biggest factors in IDPA, for example, shootings, was with this tactical reload or combat reload, was failure to seat the magazine because they have too many things in our hands, and 5 or 10 second delays in some of their overall studies with these matches to getting it reloaded. And sometimes I don't think we have that amount of time. When you look at statistics of civilian engagements with lethal force, most are over in 3 to 5 seconds. And do we have that time for that reload? So I think, Jeff, you hit it on the head with get that weapon up and functioning as fast as possible. But any way you choose to do it, you must train it under stress. And, Jeff and I both subscribe to maybe different options for reloads or carry, right, or racking a slide. Well, both of us subscribe to, you must train under realistic stress as much as you can for your self-defense purposes.
All right, Charlie, I want to thank you for being part of it today. So we talked about briefly, talked about the admin reload, which is kind of done at the shooting range. We talked about needing to reload in an emergency when you're out of bullets, and we showed 2 different ways of doing that, as well as a tactical reload, and we showed 2 different versions of that as well. So I think it's good for our viewers to see different opportunities and different techniques involved, but it's up to them to practice. And Charlie, we look forward to you coming up in May for our next training session. It's going to be fantastic, and I just want to thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Jeff. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll see you soon.
All right, you as well, Charlie. Goodbye.
Take care. Thanks.